It's Bill Krackomberger and Rosalie Michaels on the Wise Kracks Sports Betting Podcast by WSN.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Wise Kracks. I'm Rosalie Michaels and I am here with my good buddy. You know him as the Crack Man. Bill, how are you doing this week? Can you believe we're on episode 9?
Unbelievable. When I heard you just say it, I said, what? To myself. So, it's flying along, and we've been able to provide some great content for the listeners and the viewers. Listen, we have tried to help everyone here along the way with little nuggets of information, wisdom from my 25 plus years of doing this. And from the feedback we received, we're doing a great job.
Yeah. You know, I've been doing some guest spots on some other podcasts as well throughout the week, and all of them say how much they love you and how real you are and how much you really care about people that are betting. You're not just trying to sell yourself. You're a genuine guy. So I keep hearing that over and over. So thank you for being that guy.
Well, that's me. I'm actually a terrible self-promoter, but I try to just help all the viewers and the people out there, because listen, I hate to say this like this, and I know the sports books don't like me for this. They're the enemy. This is a battle. This is a war. It's like a battle between like a boa constrictor and a mongoose. This is a fight. So I want to make sure we're on the right side, and I want to give these little nuggets of wisdom and information to people out there so they're better prepared when they walk into their casino, when they walk into their sports book, play with their local guy, whatever it is. I want to make sure that you have these little tips, so you become, you actually become, even if you're going to lose, which most people lose. Let's face it, 95, 98% people lose. Maybe even that might even be low, believe it or not. But however, I want you to win. So I'm going to try to help you win, but I'm definitely going to help you lose less.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, these sports books don't like it when you say things like that, but we've seen the sports books guys come on here. They have so much respect for you. So I see you.
And Rosalie, just to further go into it, again, this morning, I was on our site, WSN, and again, look, today there's 6 new articles up. I mean, I don't know who puts those kind of articles up in a day, except us. So not only am I trying to help you win, WSN is definitely trying to help you win with all these articles on information, and especially, like I always say, the calendar of different the states across the country that yep. you could find out where to bet, where you get your best bonuses. So anyway, just make sure you guys join us at the site, read some of the stuff, and especially going into your sports books to get some bonuses. Well, you have to read WSN in order to really go in there prepared. Make sure you join us on the site.
So yeah, between WSN.com, where there's so much content to consume and read and learn, and your tips, people are going to be much better prepared for sports betting. So, all right, well, we've got a lot to get into for today's show. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So first up, we've touched on this a lot over the past few episodes, but it's really so important, and we really, really want to dive in, because betting on sports in 2020, we're seeing, is a totally different ballgame. There's so many schedule and rule changes, a lot of uncertainty, right? And we've really never seen anything like this before. I'm hearing it in the fantasy football community as well. And everybody's just really confused about how to wrap their minds around this new sports reality. So Crack's going to run through some great tips of how to bet in 2020, because this is a new world for you too, right, Crack?
Absolutely. So there are some things I'm going to go over. Exactly what you said. This is different to everyone, and we're still in learning phases here. This is very new to everybody. So we're going to go over that for sure.
Yeah. And then after our strategy session, we've got a great guest. We loved him so much in week 1 that we brought him back just because he's so much fun to talk to. And it's just in time for the PGA Championship, We've got PGA Caddie Cayce Kerr back with us. Woo woo. We had Cayce Kerr, like I said, on that first episode. And so I'm excited to have him back and kind of learn what he's been up to, how things have progressed in this PGA season.
Yes, this is the first major of this season, and Cayce really listen. Who else would we rather have? I can't name a caddy I'd rather have on here. So he's been so immersed in golf for the last 34 years. This is just it's his life. So and he's playing with the big boys. He's with the big boys every week. I mean, look at the guys he's caddied for over the period of time. Like I said, I went into this before. So many champions. Fred Couples. I'll go back to Arnold Palmer, Payne Stewart. Ernie Els now. That's his current guy. Yep. Vijay Singh. The guy won over $100 million. I mean, he has just had such unbelievable guys. So look forward to having him on.
Yeah, such a fun guy. And then, of course, after the interview, Crack's going to bring you his weekly pick, and then we wrap things up as usual, like we do with our Twitter questions from our fans out there. So lots to get to. Let's dive right in. We're going to get to our main strategy discussion, which is betting sports in 2020. Okay, Crack. So it's a big topic, but it's really an important one right now. And it's, we're adjusting our approach to betting, right, in sports in 2020. We've got a little bit into it in our last episodes on basketball and baseball, but this is really a topic that I think deserves its own show. Am I right?
Yes, it really does, And Rosalie, we've talked before the sports resumes about this stuff. And, the big fear was that the fans were going to be less interested in this. And that's a fear that also these leagues had. However, the leagues have done a really good job. The best job they can do, actually, really, with the situation at hand. A lot of these matchups are being now anticipated more than ever. But then I look at what's going on here, especially in the NBA. It's not really like they thought, because a lot of these teams. Let's look at just recently now. The NBA double-digit favorites. Some of them are losing outright. We had one of the biggest upsets ever in sports history just happened. The Brooklyn Nets, as a 19-point underdog, they beat the Milwaukee Bucks straight up. That doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in years and years. So I looked yesterday, there was some double-digit favorites that just barely squeaked out. And like the 76ers the other day, they were favored by like 8 points. They weren't even ever leading until the fourth quarter, when they gave it back and they lost the game outright. So there's some interesting stuff going on for sure.
Well, I know how much you like the underdogs, so you must be loving this, right?
Actually, I don't mess around with a lot of NBA sides. I'm more of a totals guy. Yeah. So I just find it interesting actually being a fan and looking at the lines and looking at these crazy outcomes. These teams are being so aggressive down the court. Literally, it's almost like an all-star game. They're not even playing too much defense. It's just all offense from the beginning. So,
wow. So we'll get into that a little bit more too, with some of the questions I have for you. But I mean, we're going to look at some of the biggest ways that things are different in 2020, and we're going to touch on the different sports that are already up and running. But we're also going to get into some NFL training camp talk, which is coming up quick. And I know I'm hearing a lot of questions about training camp and about how the NFL season is going to play out from my fantasy people and what they can expect. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on that as well. So let's get things started by let's recap where we're at since a few of the leagues have returned. How have your bets gone? What are the results like so far? So just bring us up to speed.
Well, betting wise, I've actually had really 2 great weeks. Started out with baseball at like 0-3 or something. I think I'm now like 12-4 or 12-5. Done very, very well. And it's just it's what I said in the past on our show here. The underdogs. I think I'm betting underdogs at a 9-to-1 ratio, maybe even 9.5-to-1. So after the first day, where the favorites were 12-2, the next couple of days the dogs just destroyed it, including like San Fran. They were plus like over 3-1 against the Dodgers. So it's been good betting wise. NBA, I actually didn't start that good in the NBA. I started out like 4-7 on the totals. which normally that's one of my fortes. This is just
Yeah.
such a crazy season. Golf, I started out fantastic though. Golf, we're up like 6-7 units since the return of golf. And like I said, these baseball, when I'm literally going like 12-5, 12-6 myself, because I bet a lot of games here in Vegas that I actually don't give out to my clients at Crack Wins, but because they can't get the line, so it's not fair. I'm not going to do that. I'm never ever going to do something like that. What a lot of other guys do, they'll send out a game with an unattainable line and then basically front running their customers. It's called. Maybe they bet it themselves, lower the line everywhere. But a lot of guys, like I said, most guys that are in my business, they don't even bet the games themselves. But the ones that do, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you a game that's obtainable in your area or nationwide or worldwide. So it has been a little crazy with the dogs here in Vegas compared to the other lines everywhere else. But still, my guys, my Crack Wins clients are very happy right now, as usual.
So one of the big things with the sports this season, as opposed to any other ones, is the lack of fans. So are you noticing like the difference in the way that these teams are playing with no fans there? Is there a competitive edge for the sports bettor? And let's go sport by sport, shall we? We'll start with baseball. What is that? Have you noticed any kind of advantage or disadvantage there?
Yeah, good. This is a good topic here. With the MLB playing with, of course, no fans, it has seemed to take the pressure off the visiting team and actually usually the underdog during the season. But yet, I always say this: out of all the home field court advantages, MLB probably is the least likely affected. But like I usually, like I said, I bet these underdogs. I'm mostly eyeing underdogs, and so far I have done it. It's just hard to lay any big favorites when pitchers and the top hitters are being scratched like right before the game. And also there's new rules this year where you're actually betting action bets. So you have to if you're betting a favorite, I don't know how you can bet it until 20 minutes or a half hour before the game. Any big favorites, you're a guy like Clayton Kershaw, you're laying 3-1 on, and sure enough, just like he got scratched the first game, it can happen again. Well, if he gets scratched, you're still laying 3-1 on a pitcher that may come in that's only 2-1 favorite. So it's a bad. It's a bad, when I say action versus listed, let me explain this to the viewer out there too. Action means you have whoever is pitching the game. Doesn't matter. It's an action wager. If you have listed pitchers, you have to have those listed pitchers that you assign, that you say, I want listed pitchers, or else the game, or else your bet is canceled. This year, most of the sports books are only allowing action wagers. They really want to get all of those 60 games in there. They want to get every game. They want to have a decision on every game.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because you were saying earlier that, a lot of the underdogs are winning in baseball. And you say normally being the away team is such a disadvantage, but because there's no fans, they're able to win these games, or at least winning in the wagers, correct?
Well, and let's that now I'll go over to another sport then that the fans mean a lot more than they do in baseball. Let's use the current NBA. So NBA, listen, I don't care who says what. The refs, the fans get into the game so much. I know just for me, a couple times I went, I was almost, I don't want to say influencing, but I was screaming and yelling at the refs. They're supposed to ignore everything, but you can't ignore some of these things. Listen, if you go to LA, you guys are very kind, very private, very nice out there. You don't really yell like they would maybe back in Brooklyn or somewhere like that. Or so by not having those fans there, it doesn't really sway the refs as much. The NBA's restart though kind of has been all over the place as far as results and scoring. Games that are dead pace with lots of turnovers and horrible shooting, to then games that are just ridiculous. Both teams running back and forth, hitting tons of 3-pointers. Like I said, the refs have actually even looked a little bit, a little bit confused, to be honest, without those fans to help them sway a little bit. Listen, there's some games where they're whistling everything, and there's other games where they just like swallow their whistles. So maybe not having that home crowd, like I said, affect their calls. It's the bubble, it's the bubble. We're away from everything. And I think we're getting some good. I don't mind not having fans in the NBA. I think it's easier for someone like me, because I think maybe especially towards the playoffs here, we're going to see what's going to happen where maybe people will just see the home team thinking it means something to them, and it kind of sways them. People think Lakers home, but it doesn't mean anything. Trust me.
It's totally different.
But for the new people, there's people betting sports right now in New Jersey that literally called me and said and did not realize that the teams are not really playing at home. So amazing.
They're not paying attention then.
They're not paying attention, and they're betting like the teams are home. So anyway.
It's so interesting because I know you said you like totals for the NBA and you've been really successful at it. So coming into this situation, did you think that they were going to be lower scoring games without the fans there or higher scoring games?
Well,
what has it actually been?
The first day, I actually went over on both games thinking that we're going to be scoring a lot more points in these games than they think. And sure enough, both of those games went under. So I went 0-2 those two games, but yet the next day, every game went over. I think 7 games in a row went over. So just that the first day jitters or whatever it may be. But I mean, now, sure enough, they went over easily the second day. So then what happened was automatically the third and fourth day, the bookmaker finally became adjusted and actually raised the totals. They still can't get it right, though. They're still going over by 20 points, some of them. But yet now I see some of them actually going under. So I think they have adjusted. I think we're getting back to a little bit more normal for the betting wise.
And I remember you saying that the beginning of the sports was when the bettor would actually have an advantage because the bookmakers needed to adjust to what they were seeing. And so now you're seeing them adjust a little bit more.
Correct.
Got it. So, okay. So how then we talked about this a little bit with the NBA, but how is the style of play different this year, like in some of the other sports, and how can we exploit those?
Well, let's look at the sports that haven't started yet, and we hope we're gonna start these. The NFL, college football. Listen, we're not quite exactly sure how this is going to work. Hopefully, they're learning from the bubble down in Orlando because I tell you, they're doing a great job right now. But let's assume that there won't be any fans at the games this year, which like here in Vegas, the Raiders announced no fans. So I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be. That's going to go nationwide, no fans. So how will it affect the lines? Well, I got to tell you, Rosalie, as a big NFL fan, because I do like it. I do enjoy my friends coming down. We do enjoy watching some NFL, which I normally don't watch a lot of stuff. My buddies will come in town on Sundays. So normally, how many times a game do you think a crowd has the direct result on a game by the crowd being into it? I'll tell you what, I think it's a lot more than people think. I think the crowd being yelling so loud when they're on defense and maybe not trying to let the offense hear their audibles or whatever it may be. I think it affects it a little bit. Listen, we could just see it in the line. When a team plays, certain teams, when they play somewhere, they're playing home compared to away. You're talking, sometimes it could be a 3-point, 4-point swing. So the home crowd in the NFL definitely means something, especially in college football. Those kids get behind these teams screaming and yelling. So we're going to see what's going to happen here. I'm hoping that we get this NFL in. Some of the players are opting out now. It's kind of scaring me a little bit. But like I said,
there's 43 players so far that have opted out. Very few, with the exception of the Patriots defense. Patriots defense have lost a lot of players and some big players, both Patrick Chung and Dante Hightower, who are both leaders. And Kyle Van Noy left to go to Miami. So that Patriots defense is kind of decimated a little bit. But talking about the home crowd, I think you're right. With football, it's a huge thing. Here in Arizona, we've got our protect the nest, right? Because it's a dome, and we try to get that decibel level up to pull the teams off sides, to rattle the quarterback, to make sure he can't get his plays called correctly. Seattle does the same thing, the 12th man. So yeah, I think that definitely makes a difference.
Definitely. Yep. And let's cross over to another sport too, since we're talking about what these leagues are doing or not doing. The PGA, I'll tell you, I have the golf, that's PGA golf. I personally think the level of play has picked up a little, with the tour with no fans. It just seems like you don't have a lot of guys yelling and screaming. A lot of the people in the galleries will scream right after there's a they go up to the tee and tee off. They're screaming, "You're the man! You're the man!" I mean, the ball can go in the water, and these people are still screaming, "You're the man." So not only do the players not have to worry about someone yelling all this stuff, but after they swing, they also don't have to worry about hitting into the groups of people, and that could help or hurt them a little bit if they hook or slice. But not having a ton of people around throughout the week just seems to have the players more locked in. To me, anyway, that's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, that actually, because we talked a little bit about NBA, we talked a little bit about NFL, we talked a little bit about Major League, but golf is still going on, and I know it's one of your favorites to bet on. So tell me about, is there anything else that people should know about betting now that we've seen a number of tournaments and the PGA events maybe that you're looking forward to?
This is a major this week. This is a giant one. I'll actually typically bet a little bit less on the major tournaments because, listen, this week there's 92 of the top 100 players in the world playing. So
wow.
The randomness of these big events can come into play a little bit. So a lot of these younger guys are a little bit hungry. Hopefully they step up here and we have a really great tournament again. But as far as the PGA, we bet matchups player versus player, and every week we're on a roll right now. I think we've won 4 weeks in a row.
Wow.
That's what I do with the PGA matchups. It's one of our fortes, and I look forward to continue having a successful PGA season. And especially, again, and you can get all these things on my site, Crack Wins, and you can also go to the Crack Wins app. We've really broken things down, and I have some great articles on there, great information. And I look forward to helping people out, continually. We have done a great job beating these bookmakers.
Great. Okay, so good advice for this weekend with PGA. Okay, so I'm going to come back to NFL because I love it. It's my first love. So as training camp is starting right now, what are you watching out for? What are the things that you're looking for? Because this is a different situation. Normally, you can gauge during training camp and preseason, you can gauge a little bit more about how the team offenses and defenses are going to scheme. We're not going to see any of that. So what are you looking for?
We're not having any of that this year. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I'm going to keep on doing it until everybody knows, especially now with these players opting out. Information is the key, and information is picked up just by reading the local newspapers online, the beat reporters, not just the paper, not just the whole sports section. Let's read the actual beat reporters of the particular team. If I'm talking about Arizona, I'm going to read down there whatever your local paper is. I'm going to read that beat reporter's blog, or I'm going to also make sure I check out their social media on Twitter or Instagram, mostly Twitter. I'm a Twitter guy when it comes to information, though. So again, and you stick, not only that, that crosses over to the players themselves, the coaches, the trainers. Yep. Just keep on reading that information. And listen, I know it's a lot of work. Absolutely, it's a lot of work. But if you want to be successful at this, or you want to just be a fan and have fun and gamble, and you're over the long term, you're going to lose, or you want to be serious and take this career serious and start making some money, you can just read about things, try to gain with little nuggets of information, pick them up from here and there.
Yep, just like in the fantasy world. And of course, if it comes to NFL, you know that I've got your back there on Twitter. I'm constantly retweeting, and the beat writers is exactly what I follow. They're in there. They are really, I follow other fantasy people too, but following the beat writers is really where you get those nuggets of information, what the coaches are saying, what the players themselves are saying. It's all very, very important right now. Knowledge is key. Now, the opt-out deadline is Thursday. It's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So at that point, we should be able to know exactly what's going on as far as the players opting out. Players can opt out later in the season if they themselves get COVID or their family member gets COVID. They can opt out. But another thing that you need to keep an eye on is because the things have changed in terms of when players can be called up from practice squads and when players can also be sent to IR for COVID, because this is a little bit different injury-wise this year for the NFL. Because with COVID, it's not just if the player themselves get COVID, it's if they've been exposed. or if they have a family member. If their family member has COVID, then they have to be put on the IR as well. So the COVID list, not the IR. So that's going to affect how you bet too, because some big players, quarterbacks, wide receivers, if their wife, if their mother, if their father gets COVID, that's going to affect what happens in the game.
It's a great conversation here, because I'll tell you what, something that I just spontaneously thought of. There's going to be an overreaction to key players being out. So we'll have here week 1, week 2, week 3. You'll see a key player you'll hear in the media that's not going to be playing. And immediately that line's going to be affected because of that player being out. However, let's face it, there is another professional jumping into that person's shoes that wants to show to everybody that they can perform to a level where they should be a starter, maybe not on that team, on some other team, whatever it may be. So they're going to play to, the best they've ever can play, if they can handle the pressure, which some of them absolutely could.
Yeah.
It's not always right just to jump on that team, the opposite team of the injury. So I'll actually jump on teams with the injury after the line moved because of the public's overreaction to that.
So, that's injuries that happen. So what about players opting out this season? Does that change any of your betting perspective? I mean, so far we have, like I said, the Patriots defense is kind of decimated right now. Damian Williams has opted out, but they've got that rookie that they drafted in the first round there in Kansas City to take over there, which people are really high on. And then Marquise Goodwin, who is a wide receiver for the Eagles, are the big key players, some linemen and stuff. But are any of those opt-outs really kind of changing your betting perspective?
Well, it's funny and actually those linemen, there you can see the contracts they're getting now and how high they are on draft day. So they're really important to a team's success also. Yeah. So that also would even be a key player right now. And the lines are already reflected that when they're opting out. So it really doesn't affect my betting strategy. I don't even bet too many NFL sides. If I bet 2 or 3 a year, it's a lot. I'm more doing the totals in the NFL, first half totals, props. So it really doesn't. These people that opted out haven't really affected me right now anyway.
And I know you said, because the opt-outs, I think, lend themselves more to the future bets than anything else. And I know you say, why tie up your money right now in those future bets for the NFL if we don't even know if we're going to have a full season? So are there any of the other sports that you feel more confident about having a full season? I mean, with MLB came out and we've seen what's happened there with teams not being able to play games. Do you think we'll get to the full 60 games? And what about NHL and NBA? Do you think we're going to have full seasons? Or
I obviously in order of mathematical yeses, the NBA I think is going to get there. Of course, they're playing under a bubble. I think they're fine. I think NHL may even be next. I don't know if we're going to get.
Well, they're in a bubble too, so
NHL's next. I don't know if we're going to get this baseball season in. I hope we do. I'm hearing some bad rumblings around, so I'm hoping that we do get this in, and I'm hoping more importantly that the NFL players and not only the players, the people that are in charge are learning from other mistakes or learning from what's going on in the other leagues. So I'm hoping we get the NFL season in. Like I said, very disappointing, especially out here in Vegas, not having any fans. Even Mark Davis, owner of the team, said, I'm not going to any of the games. So let's see what happens.
I know you built that big, beautiful stadium, and it's just going to sit without fans for now. But, that's okay. I think that right now we have to just do whatever it takes in order to have sports in our lives. I know that everybody is excited to have sports back. We've talked a little bit about how how the fans are engaged. And I think that's 2 reasons. I think it's because, number one, because we've been aching so badly for sports, and the fact that sports betting is on the rise. We're getting more states that are allowing it. People are getting more involved. And so sports betting makes fans more engaged in watching the games, right?
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I think that was great. We got a lot of information there. Of course, don't forget at WSN.com, we have all kinds of information for you on what sports betting is like in 2020 and how to adjust. Lots of great articles there, blogs, videos. As Crack mentioned earlier, of course, we have, all the state by state guides and the bonuses, which, as you know, Crack is a big proponent of. So make sure you check that out. And you can also check out Crack's guide to everything on crackwins.com. And if you haven't already, you want to, all these sports are coming back, and we've talked about all the different things, but you're not going to remember it all from this pod. And there's more information. You got to download the Crackwins app. It's available on both Apple and Google Play, and you get full access inside the mind and the world of the Crackman with his weekly picks, along with all the great betting strategies and insider content. Right, Crack?
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was great. I really enjoyed that. I think it's really important, and I think there's a lot of really good information. Now we get into the PGA, because you talked about a little bit about that earlier, and we have a great guest coming up. We loved him so much the first time we had him on in week one that we've asked him back, because now PGA has been going on for a little while. I want to see what's happening and what's new. Our guest, Cayce Kerr, he's caddied over 1,000 PGA, at 1,000. It's hard to count that high sometimes. PGA.
It's hard to believe, actually. Think about that.
Yeah.
1,000 PGA tournaments this guy has caddied in.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else did that. That's unbelievable.
It's a lot of steps on your Apple Watch there, Crack. A lot of steps. Yeah. It was 100 majors that he's caddied in as well, and caddied for 14 players that have won majors. Hello. 9 players that are in the Hall of Fame. Hello again. And then 6 number 1 players.
6 number 1 golfers in the world. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
This is a resume of resumes. I mean, people hope that if you are doing anything professionally in your lifetime, that you have the kind of resume that Cayce does. So we caught up with him a little bit earlier, so we want to let you guys in on what he had to say. Check it out here. Hey, Cayce, welcome back, my friend. Where are you right now?
Currently, I'm in my van, my Chevy van that I drive around the tour in, my second home. And I'm just sitting here looking forward to talking to you guys. I know Bill and I were looking forward to discussing the first major of the year. So I'm excited to be back on the show, and I can't thank you enough.
You were caddying for Matthew Fitzpatrick last time we spoke from Hilton Head. Can you bring us up to date what's going on with the PGA Tour right now?
Sure. Well, yeah, sure. And thanks for asking. The number one thing I wanted to mention from the PGA Tour standpoint is I think that we really want to give them a lot of credit for what they've done in this pandemic for the COVID-19. And I think there's 3 areas that are most important: the social distancing, wearing the mask, and using the hand sanitizer. Because let's face it, last week, Brendan Grace was lying second going into Sunday. Now, he's a friend of mine, and I know his caddy. I mean, it's just devastating to know, because of the COVID, that he wasn't able to compete, and now he's not playing this week. And so the other sports that are out there, baseball, football, basketball, I mean, golfers on tour, and caddies, we love the other sports. And we love the fact that everybody's getting going again. And since golf was the first one, I think if a lot of those sports mirror the concept and the seriousness that the tour has taken and the measures to stay protected and protect others, I think it would help everybody. And I just think we can't say enough to the PGA Tour for the measures that they've taken to keep everybody safe. And a lot of people ask, what's it like now, without the spectators? What's it like now on tour with this COVID? And like someone like myself, I'm a social guy. I like hanging out with the boys, finding out the clubs. Last week, I stayed by myself. I got back to my room about 5:30, 6:30. Went to the grocery store for dinner, brought it back. And when I go to the course, I eat by myself. And a lot of guys like to eat by themselves. Like Tiger Woods' caddy, Joe LaCava. I saw him at Muirfield. I said to Joe, I mean, can you imagine if you're Joe and you got the coronavirus? I said, Cayce Kerr gets it. Maybe everyone on tour knows about it. Joe LaCava gets it. Everyone in the world knows about it. And so, we stayed 6 feet away from each other. Joe had a mask. I had a mask, the hand sanitizer. And just, the one thing about golf is, we're away from each other. And the thing about golf that a lot of people know, it's tradition afterwards. Like if Rosalie and Bill and I all played around, we take our hat off, we shake hands, thanks for the round. I mean, we don't even do that anymore. We just say hi to the guy, thanks. And so we've had to adjust traditions because it is so important, as you know, to keep as safe as possible because, this is pretty serious and we don't want to stop playing golf and we don't want to stop watching baseball because look, we all need something to do when we get off the course. So to all you guys out there in the other sports, look, we're happy for you. We're glad you guys are up and playing again, but please, the tour has really gone over and above the call of duty to stay protected. If you guys mirror some of our concepts, I just believe it can keep you safe, the team safe, and we can all keep delivering sports to the world and the people out there that we know like to maybe have a bet on it or just people that like to watch, Bill.
Yeah.
And then also, we wanted to talk about the spectators. I mean, look, one of the things that has changed from a spectator capacity is, look, everybody loves a spectator. Everybody loves the fans. One of my favorite things to do was hand a little boy a ball that just looked up at me that's not even asking, and I see him look at his dad, and they're both grinning from ear to ear. It's like one of the greatest feelings in the world. But from a spectator's standpoint, one thing that is different on the weekend, after the cut is made and we play twosomes, the pace of play is lightning. So, example, golf is feeling momentum. And look, if we get on a roll, we're going to play in like 3 hours and 15 minutes, 3 hours and 20. And if we're making birdies, we're going to play a little bit faster. Obviously, if you're not playing as good, you play slower. So the pace of play has been fast. So guys can really get into it. The part where you don't hear the roars, like let's say, at Augusta, we got the Tiger roars, and everyone knows when Tiger makes a birdie because we can hear it all the way out onto Washington Road there. And now, of course, you do miss that part because that is a little intimidating. So I think, the guys that are trying to move up the leaderboard, sometimes not knowing is better because if you do know, it puts more pressure on you. So, there's pros and cons to both sides of it. But as far as the adjustment is concerned, the pace of play is much faster. And I'd say 90% of guys on tour, they like to have a nice steady play because golf, it's a momentum thing. And once you get going good, it's like, man, come on, let's go. And then all of a sudden you're finished. You're like, oh man, I'm ready to play 9 more holes. So I think, from that standpoint, I think it's been good. And then, the sad part is, let's face it, everyone loves to stuff one in there and, tip your hat as you're walking up as the fans are sitting there clapping for you. I mean, as a caddy, it's like, oh, my man's doing good.
Yeah.
We talked about that before. So I just wanted to shout out to the other sports teams out there and the owners and the players and all the organizations. Look, we love you guys. We support you. We're glad you're back. But, boy, the safer you guys all stay and the safer you are together and we look out for one another, man, it's just going to help everybody. And Bill and I thought that was an important message to share with the listeners because, let's face it, I don't want them to cancel a golf tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's interesting that you talked about the fans and having them there and as opposed to not having them there. Because I remember you said last time how much you really like having the fans around at the tournaments. And so it sounds like now you've seen some benefit to not having them there, but you do miss having them. Let's talk a little bit about like when it comes to majors though. When it comes to majors, that is like, there's a lot of pressure that comes not only from playing in the major, but also right from the fan perspective. So do you think not having fans at the major tournaments will make things better for the players, or do you think it'll take something away?
Well, as far as the fans taking it away, like, for example, this week at Harding Park, the golf course is extremely difficult. One advantage to having fans on a difficult golf course is if you happen to hit it in a location that's not on the golf course and you've got high rough. One thing about all the fans, everyone knows exactly where the ball is, and because of the pace of play has they changed the rule on looking for your ball. So I think they only give us like 2 or 3 minutes where they used to give you 5. So now that puts a lot of pressure. So the volunteers that are there, we're waving our hand left or waving our hand right to let them know where the ball's going. So that way, when we get there, hopefully, we can find it. Last week, I saw Ben On come back to the 5th tee, the right side of that fairway. Well, the rough was really thick, and he didn't find his ball. If we had fans there, they would have said, "Hey, further up, further back," and then you can lift the rope up and say, "Hey, come show me." So, for the field, it helped the field, but it didn't help Ben On.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cayce, tell us about the pairings this week. Is that important to the individual golfer who they're paired with? Or is there some old feuds maybe, or some old caddies caddying for someone else that maybe it gets a little uncomfortable? Tell us, is that an important thing or not really?
Well, I think as far as the pairings are concerned, from a pro and a caddy standpoint, as soon as the pairing's out, the pro always says to the caddy, who we got? It's like, okay, who we paired with? And then right away, depending on who we're paired with, oh, you got to be kidding. We didn't get him again. Oh, we're playing with him. Oh, that's great. So, it's one of the things during the week that you look forward to because it's always something that you don't know about. So the pairings definitely are always important. And like, for example, let's say last week on Sunday, Bones, Jim Mackay, doing a great job as an announcer, great job as a caddy, great person. He's filling in for Justin Thomas, and lo and behold, they get paired with his former boss, Phil Mickelson, on Sunday. Justin Thomas wins. So, one thing about golf, caddy gets fired, caddy gets a new job, caddy and the new player are paired with the old player the following week. It's just what happens. So, that's why you just never know who you're going to be paired with. Now, Bones ended up caddying for the winner, and, Mickelson ended up finishing good. So they had such a great relationship. I'm sure deep down they were not pulling against each other, but deep down, the competitive spirit of both of them just wants to win, as Al Davis used to say for the Raiders, just win, baby, just win, So,
wow. Well, it is. It's interesting. So from a betting perspective, you guys out there definitely want to be taking a look at those pairings and see who plays up to their competition and who doesn't, right?
Well, the other thing, too, on the betting, as far as the pairings are concerned, for example, Bill and I talked about the weather. Okay, so now we know that the weather this week, okay, like right now, it's 56 degrees. It feels like 52. The air quality is dense. The ball's not going anywhere. Well, we've been in Memphis and Columbus, Ohio the last 2 weeks where the ball's going forever. So now this week, it is a totally different ball game. So the guys that play in the morning, they're going to be cold. Their hands aren't going to quite have the same feeling. Then it gets a little warmer. So the afternoon tee times this week, you'll notice the scoring will be a little bit better in the afternoon than it will be in the morning, because in the morning when it's colder, it's very difficult to play. So from a betting standpoint, I would lean towards the afternoon group on Thursday versus the guys that are playing in the morning. And if you look at those scores afterwards, I can assure you those scores in the afternoon will definitely be better than those scores in the morning. And then don't forget also, Bill, there's courses for horses. There's some players that don't play in the cold. There's some Americans that didn't like playing in the British Open because it's windy and cold. And then there's some guys that we call that are mutters, like Fuzzy Zeller years ago. He didn't care if it was raining. He didn't care if it was hot out. To him, it didn't make a difference. There's some guys, they just don't have that same touch and that feel when it's cold. And like tomorrow, it's going to be a tough day out there, and the whole week. As I mentioned to you before, Mark Twain, famous American, author writer. He said the coldest winter he ever spent in his life was a summer in San
Francisco. Yeah.
Wow. Really cool. And Cayce,
so, yes, sir.
No, you mentioned about the betting aspect, and the listeners and viewers, a lot of them aren't going to know this. The last time I talked to you about a major, we were live on air, and I said, Cayce, give us some golfers, because it's, you want to pick 3 golfers, 4 golfers, and maybe a long horse, and for everyone, you won't believe what this guy did. So he picked a couple of guys that were like 20, 25 to 1, and then he said, "Now listen, this was over at the Open over in the British Open. I don't think it's called the British Open; it's called the Open now." So
we played it in Ireland last year.
Ireland, okay, so it was Ireland, right? So you said, "Well, I'll tell you right now, it's in Ireland, and I know everyone likes McIlroy, but I'll tell you this: there's an outside shot here. We have a dark horse, Shane Lowry." And I said, "Well, he's like 80 to 1. He was 80 to 1 at the building I was in at the time, the South Point, but he was 100 to 1 over at the Westgate." So, and sure enough, what happens? Shane Lowry wins. Unbelievable call.
Wow.
Yeah. So we hope now that's again, another little segue here. We need to know who you think.
Okay.
Who can we ask? Give us some picks here. Maybe a dark horse too. Give us some picks who you like this week.
Okay, I thought about it, and here's how it plays out. In Columbus, Ohio, at Jack Nicklaus tournament, Justin Thomas got edged out in a playoff. Okay, and the guy that beat him was what was the guy's name? Colin Morikawa. And so, when you get up there and you get edged out in a playoff, I've been in playoffs before. You just always feel like you should have won. And so what did Justin Thomas do? He came back last week in Memphis, and what did he do? He took the cash, and he got the hardware, and he got it done. So now, who's the next guy that's the hungriest, has the most to gain, the most to win, and is really prepared, and has been in that race and wants that title and got beat last week? My number one pick this week is Brooks Koepka. He got edged out last week. He didn't birdie 16. He hit it in the water at 18. He's not happy that he didn't take the hardware and get all the cash going down the stretch. This week, he's going for his 3rd PGA Championship in a row. There's only one other golfer in the whole world that ever won 3 in a row. That's Byron Nelson. So my number one chalk favorite, you got to go with Brooks, because he's got something to prove coming off that defeat. Justin Thomas, of course, he's my second pick, because there's only one player that's ever won a World Golf Championship and the PGA back-to-back, and that's Tiger Woods. Well, if you're Justin Thomas, I like to be in the same neighborhood with records when it comes to Tiger Woods. It makes my name look good. And so you got to go with Justin Thomas. Now, after that, I can assure you, there's a slew of guys that I really like, but my dark horse for the week, this guy's been trending. I've caddied for him. Bones is caddying for him. His regular caddy came back last week. Billy Foster is my guy, Matthew Fitzpatrick. He hasn't won on U.S. soil. That's number one. He's finished. He double bogeyed 17. He would have finished second last week. He finished 3rd with Bones at Columbus. I mean, he's really trending. He's a great putter. He hits it straight, and he's very disciplined. He's classified as the Bernhard Langer mentally. He's very strategic. But the reason that I also like him, think about the climate. Those European guys on a sunny day in America, they're like, oh, you guys are so lucky. They're lucky to see the sun once a year over there. It's like leap year. I mean, other personally, they don't get a lot of good days. So the climate for those guys is really in their wheelhouse. So I look for the European contingency to have more than just Matthew Fitzpatrick's name up there. Also, Shane Lowry, he had a good tournament last week. He finished 6th. He got his regular caddy back last week. So, when you get the horse and the jockey back together and they start helping each other and there's chemistry there and they start working together, things start gelling. As you know, as success follows, you're like, oh, my God, Bill, how you feel? I feel great. I mean, how's it going? Oh, man, it's going great. I can't get to the tee fast enough. But in the words of Fuzzy Zella, let's always put it in perspective. The longest walk in golf is the walk from the tee. From the driving range to the first tee. There's a lot that can go on in their head there. And, in fairness, it would be unfair not to throw the Tiger in there.
Oh boy! I'll tell you what. From a values perspective, though, you can't go with Tiger Woods. The sports books know that their anticipation of betting him, they made him a 25-1 shot. He should be more like 60-1 or something. By the way, Fitzpatrick is about 50-1. And I know, Cayce, because you don't gamble, but there's also other ways to bet these golfers. Like you could bet Fitzpatrick to come in the top 10 and get back 7-1 or 8-1. So, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. So that's fantastic that you picked a couple golfers here. And it's funny, the only 2 times I did ask you on air, both times you got it right. Winning the Masters, Tiger Woods at 20-1, and winning Shane Lowry at 100 or 80 to 100-1. So fantastic. That's really good. That's what our guys want to really know. So
absolutely.
And one thing about Matthew Fitzpatrick, in fairness, he doesn't get a lot of airtime for as great of a player that he is. He's inside the top 20 in the world right now, and not many people really. I give him like the Rodney Dangerfield. He gets no respect. I got to tell you guys, he is. There's one word that I could use to describe Matthew Fitzpatrick: class.
Wow.
And let me tell you this: world class.
Wow.
Yeah,
hey,
so,
Cayce, let me go into something here before we let you go. So I'm going to give a story that I haven't even talked to you about this, Cayce. I don't know if you remember this. Hilton Head, probably, 10, 12 years ago. I don't know how long ago. So I'm up in the condo, and you come over and you bring a tour player on that just started. He came over for a barbecue outside, real skinny kid with his girlfriend. And I said, well, and he's a very nice guy. He was very nice. Still to this day, he's very nice to me when I see him. I've talked to him a couple times. But back then, when he left the barbecue and you guys left, I told my buddy Frankie, who always takes me to Hilton Head with him. I said, Frankie, I don't know if that guy's gonna make it, man. He's like a twig. I just don't see him making it. That golfer's name is Rory McIlroy. That's just, isn't that embarrassing? I'm sitting across from his girlfriend, talking to him a little bit, acting nice. But when he left the condo, I don't know if that guy's gonna make it, man. Oh God.
So Kracks' career as a talent scout out. Out.
So that leads me into my final question for you too. Cayce, can you give us any fond memories of the PGA or anything any PGA Championship that you caddied in?
Yeah, it's funny you were asking. Every time a major comes around, I always have one fond memory of a major of the 4 that there are. Whether it was tennis or horse racing or golf, having the majors that we have. The PGA Championship in 1989. We were at Kemper Lakes in Chicago. I was caddying for Hubert Green, and lo and behold, we were on about the 4th or 5th hole, and Arnold Palmer, his name doesn't go on the leaderboard. It's on top of the leaderboard. And everyone in the group says, Arnold's leading the turn. So the players and the caddies were talking, and it was so cool. And so that Sunday of the tournament, Payne Stewart ended up winning the tournament, and Hubert Green was paired with Arnold Palmer on Sunday. And as we came up 18, Hubert Green was paired with Jody Mudd, and he just told Jody just to hold up, and they let the king walk up to the green on his own. It was his window of admiration for the fans, and they just all stood up, and I was like, just to sit there and watch him and watch the fans, and to know that he was on the leaderboard in 1989. Come on, it's I'd never forget that, because it was it was Arnold Palmer, and there's a lot of greats in the game, but Arnold was a beloved guy, and he just loved people, and he loved signing autographs. He was a sweet man, and I think he's one of those guys everybody just had something good to say about, and everybody always pulled for him. So my fondest memory definitely is that one of Arnold, and then to be paired with him on Sunday and actually watch him in action was pretty cool.
Wow. Very
You
cool.
know you're a legend when you have a beverage named after you, right? So.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And last but not least, I think we ought to give a shout out to the city of San Francisco. As we were discussing earlier, they've had 5 major championship U.S. Opens at the Olympic Club. And you and I were talking about the Olympic Club. And the guys that designed the Olympic Club were the same guys that designed Harding Park. And the part that makes it interesting, they got paid $300 to design the golf course.
Wow.
And it was in, it was 1925. And I just thought, can you imagine the same guys that designed that course are the same ones that designed Harding Park? And as I said, the great players that come out of San Francisco, Johnny Miller, Ken Venturi. Ken Venturi's father was the pro at Harding Park. And also in 1923, President Harding, he was in San Francisco. He passed away in a hotel, and they named the golf course after President Harding, which I thought was pretty interesting. He was the 29th president of the United States. So a lot of history in San Francisco, a lot of good people there. And I think we should shout out to the city and thank them for hosting the event, and really appreciate going to that town. Lots of good people there, good food, good sports, and good entertainment.
Cayce, thank you so much. You know, we could listen to Cayce stories all day long, but we got to save some for next time because we know we're going to have you back, my friend. So thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. We got the U.S. Open at Wingfoot, and we cannot forget about Augusta, Georgia.
That's right. That's right. So
Thanks,
we'll
Cayce.
see you next time. All right, Crack. And here we go into our picks and plays in the week to come. So, Crack, what kind of pick do you have for us this week?
Well, I'm not going to actually give an individual pick out, but I want to talk about baseball. I want to talk about these dogs. I'll tell you, it's still the right way to go, and in your betting strategy. And I want to give you another little nugget here of information. I use that word a lot. Sorry. But
nuggets are good.
Nuggets a good word. Yeah.
It's gold. Gold, Jerry, gold.
That's right. That's right. For Seinfeld fans out there. This is something on the extra inning games. There are 7-inning games they're playing. So there's 7 innings. So if you were to bet a first 5 inning in a baseball game, which by the way, you could bet either first 5 innings or you could bet full game, which is the full 9 innings and any extra innings, of course. But if you were to bet first 5 innings, the juice becomes double. So you're instead of laying 105 each way, you're going to lay 110 each way. Yeah. So for these 7-inning games, you're still going to lay the 105 each way. So I may find some value here even more in these extra inning games than the full game. So keep an eye on these 7-inning games. There's more of a randomness in the sport this year too, where I just think that these teams are being way too undervalued. These road teams, what they're calling road teams. So I think I'm going to be looking more towards these 7-inning games. Also, I really shouldn't rock the boat. I've done so well in baseball, but I'm going to look more towards these 7-inning games, underdogs too. So keep your eye on the lines. Keep your eye on what I do on Twitter, and keep your eye on Crack Wins, because I think I'm going to dive into this a little more. But just for yourself though, look at these 7-inning dogs. I think it might be something that we can all make some money on.
Got it. So the 7-inning dogs in MLB, and then of course you're line shopping, because that's what you have to do, right?
Correct.
Find the best lines that you can on those 7-inning dogs. Okay, good. So we've got some other sports. We've got PGA, we've got NHL starting up, and so are there anything else you got your eye on this week?
Well, just of course the big tournament this weekend, the major. I'll be watching it. I love watching majors, so I am going to be keeping my eye on that. And as we get close to the NBA playoffs here, you don't know what some of these teams may be doing too, because let's just face it, like, to have the seeding, you could be a 4th or 5th seed. That doesn't mean anything now. So you may want to watch some of these teams, what they're going to be doing these last couple games, because they don't want to play someone, they want to avoid somebody. So I'm not going to say they're going to lose on purpose, but keep your eye on it.
I'm not going to say it out loud, but you know, just a little. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Very, very good. So love that. And of course, you know, don't forget to download the Crackwinds app to keep your eye on what Crack's doing there too. Absolutely. All right, last segment of the day. Our Twitter questions from the viewers. Yeah. All right, so we've got some good ones, so we're going to get right into it. From Jim 166517, I wanted to make sure we knew which Jim it was. He says, hey, love the show. Thanks, Jim. We love you too. My question for Bill, who are the square books in Vegas besides Will Hill? Now, this is a good question because it's important to know who they are, right, Crack?
Yes, and thanks to Jim. He's a big fan of the show. He's also on he always responds to my Twitter thing. So good guy to have on our, you know, that has our back here. So Jim, let me tell you, when you come out to Vegas, I'm going to think these square books here are going to be not only William Hill, but the Stations casinos, the Coast casinos, the Wynn. They're the top 4 you want in your arsenal. Okay. If you're going to be betting my underdogs, these underdogs, you're going to find better prices on those sports books than you are probably at the major sports books, which are the sharper ones, the Circas, the Westgates, the South Point. So keep your eye on those dogs. But now let's go over to the East Coast. I think Jim's on the East Coast. When you're on the East Coast, you're going to have like the FanDuels and DraftKings. You want to just make sure you have William Hill in your arsenal on the East Coast, because you're going to need that sports book, because those sports books I just mentioned, they're more following the sharper offshore lines, whereas William Hill sticks with the more square line. So that answers your question.
Got it. Good questions. Very, very good question. So, all right, this one comes from Edwin Lord. And we talked a little bit about NBA earlier, so I'm interested to see how this question plays out. The NBA games during bubble seem to be similar to preseason. Who do you like when the series begins between teams? Now, this is interesting. Because he's talking about like the playoffs. He's talking about
the team, like with playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So I would look for the teams going into the playoffs that are maybe resting those players. Let's see over the next, let's just face it, over the next few days, let's see what teams start resting players and don't play as much as they normally would, maybe even at day 1 or game 1 or 2 during this return to the NBA. So look for those teams. Look at look at the scores. Look at the box scores. See how much time the key marquee players are getting, and look for the ones that are a little bit more rested going into the playoffs for sure.
Interesting. Good point. Well, I know that the Lakers have already clinched, right? And there might be some other ones. So those teams.
But yet I've seen LeBron, playing. I actually couldn't believe the box score when I seen it the other day. LeBron played like 37 minutes or 40 minutes. I was like, wow. So keep your eye on, see what they play less and less. Let's see what happens.
Good point. Nice. I like it. All right. This comes from 2019 cancer survivor. Hey, we love you. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're healthy. Now, this is a great question, really getting into the fun of sports betting here. In the movie Back to the Future 2, Biff was given a sports almanac book from his grandfather, so he knew all the results of games played. On a normal weekend in September and October, with sports like NFL, CFB, MLB, and more being played, how much could you make if you knew all the results? I'm going to tweak this just a little bit now, because obviously we'd make all the money, right? As much as your bankroll would allow. But I want to know, because have there ever been a bet that you made where it felt like you knew the result before you placed it?
Well, let's start at the beginning of this. This is something that my knockaround friends back east have thought about in the past, because it's a conversation. It's a fantasy. It really is. But it would be unbelievable to be like the Back to the Future. Or I seen a special. I was on a plane last year. There was a movie on or something where James Franco went back in time. And when he went back in time, he was trying to prevent the Kennedy assassination. He walked through this restaurant and walked into the time warp. And of course, the kind of a brain I have on the plane, I'm saying to myself, wow, this guy's trying to avoid the Kennedy assassination. I want to know I would definitely have the winners of all the horse races back then. Sports betting wasn't as big back then in the 60s, but I would want to have the winners of all the horse races. And of course, sports betting, what was happening on an illegal sense back with street bookmakers. It just wasn't that prevalent out here in Nevada. Like
allegiance to the bankroll.
So that's right. I immediately thought of that during watching that. Wouldn't that just be unbelievable? People just say if they had like a magic lamp, they rub the magic lamp and, let me get the numbers for the lotto. I guess that would be also like unbelievable to, win one of these mega $100 million lottos. I know myself, I'd still probably be broke and giving it all away. Because that when you have that kind of money, you should be very charitable. And that's the way I would be for sure. So this, I can only say, happened one time. This was when I got a call from someone on the PGA Tour. It wasn't Cayce. I wasn't even friends with Cayce at the time, the Caddie. I was friends with someone else. And he said, listen, Greg Norman is on the massage table right now. It was Thursday morning. He said he hurt his ankle. However, he's on the massage table, but he's going to be going out there, but he's limping around. So he's going to be going out there trying to, he's definitely going to tee off. So he's going to see how it feels. And, but I bet against him on every single matchup I could find. And by the way, giant max bets. At the time, there was a sports book that was taking $5,000 on PGA Tour matchups. That ended pretty quick. But I did have them at that time. So I was betting against Greg Norman. And sure enough, what did he do? He went out there, and they get sponsorship commitments too. So they have to go out there and show their little Titleist on their shirt or whatever it may be. Yeah. And he went out there, he played 7 holes, and he withdrew. So I actually won on the first day. I won my 4-day matchups, my daily matchup. And golf betting wasn't as big back then as it is now. However, there was certain sports books that would take golf matchups. And, like I said, I did get down about 5 figures on that. I got down about 10, 12 grand, but I would have got down as much as I can. When I hear somebody's hurt, yet they're still going to come out on the golf course. So that's the answer to that.
Interesting. So they always say there's no sure thing in sports, but you got pretty close there.
Yep.
Pretty close. I love it. See, the thing is that this whole dichotomy, this whole not dichotomy, it's really the question of would you or wouldn't you? I think from the money perspective, I'd want to know the answers to all of the winners of sports questions. But the sports fan in me says it just ruins the game for me. So, but allegiance to the bankroll, right?
That's it.
Well, so much fun this week. What a great episode. We needed to talk about this with 2020 going the way that it is. We've got another great topic for you guys next week. I want to thank you guys for joining us once again here on Wise Kracks. We love having you here. Don't forget to subscribe to WSN on YouTube to see this episode and go back to it. And of course, check out all of our previous episodes and all the great guests that we've had in the past. And we have more great ones coming up, right, Crack?
Absolutely. We're going to have some really good guests on here. I'm trying to get one of the number 1 fantasy guys in the world for NFL season. You guys will have a great time together.
You mean besides me?
Right. That's what I'm saying. You guys will be great together. So
we'll have a good time. Well, I love that. Love it. So, and then of course, join us next week for another great sports betting strategy deep dive, another special guest, more picks and plays from the Crack Man. We'll see you next week.